Hi all, Rick here. So there is a problem with Neutronium in Star Trek. So let's just start by looking at just what that material is. Neutronium is material naturally encountered in the heart of neutron stars and the most durable material known to exist in Star Trek. No known weapon can scratch it, let alone pierce it, and scanners and transporters cannot pass through it, suggesting it's incredibly dense. It is difficult to create outside of its natural conditions, being unreplicatable, as well as impossible to create using other methods in a lab. Well, impossible for Federation levels of technology. Despite this, there have been numerous encounters with structures that used it, the Planet Killer weapon and the Dyson Spheres being two such creations. The Planet Killer was created by an unknown civilization at least several thousand years extinct as a doomsday weapon that could fire pure antimatter beams to destroy entire planets. Hence the name. Nothing was known of the culture who made it, nor their fate, as none have come forward to claim the weapon and no evidence of its origin can be found, with speculation being that it originated from beyond the Milky Way. As it was entirely covered in a rather rudimentary looking Neutronium sheath, it's probable that the civilization who constructed it was able to harvest Neutronium from the cores of stars and clad their device in it. The Dyson Sphere was a superstructure around 200 million kilometers wide that encased a star. Not only was this structure so mind-bogglingly huge, it was constructed of a neutronium alloy. The fact that it was alloyed suggests that not only were the creators of the sphere able to work with it, but perhaps shape and create neutronium to a much vaster degree than those who made the Planet Killer. Now, the Iconians were shown to have worked neutronium into their structures and gateways, but these were nowhere near as large as the aforementioned creations. What's more, they did not bind this fantastic material throughout everything they constructed, which suggests that they only had limited use of it. The Dominion have also used neutronium, using it to fortify the doors of the Cardassian Central Command building. However, this could have been recycled material from other finds, like Iconian ruins, something we know they were interested in. Or the Dominion have learned how to collect and make use of small amounts. Either way, it's a science well beyond Starfleet's. So, the problem with it is that it cannot exist, at least in real life. It's hypothetical for a start, a material made entirely of neutrons, which seems impossible to have a lump of that exist to handle. Protons and electrons must be present to give matter form, so any neutronium made entirely of neutrons would not retain that. However, Star Trek claims that neutronium is formed within the cores of neutron stars, so let's look at this. A neutron star is formed when a massive star approaches the end of its life. Its inward pressure exceeds gravity as it expands, and it begins to burn heavier and heavier elements at a faster and faster rate until it forms an iron core. This iron core cannot be converted into fuel to continue the stellar growth. So this expansion stalls, gravity becomes the dominant effect, and the star collapses in on itself under its own mass. This compression forces the electrons and protons within the molecules of the star to fuse into neutrons, known as a form of degenerate matter, nuclear matter. There's a bit more to it than that, but it's irrelevant for this. Most of the star is ricocheted off the core as a supernova. What is left is a small spinning cinder of a core only a few kilometers wide, but with an unimaginably large mass. It is so dense that 1 cubic centimeter of it would weigh 1 billion tons, and it warps light around it. There exists a crystalline lattice of compressed iron below a neutron star's surface, which yields to even more extreme compressed forms of matter inside, as the sheer force creates atomic structures that cannot exist beyond this environment. Below this is the little understood core of a neutron star, the apparent forge for neutronium according to Trek, but in real life, well, investigations ongoing. As a side fact, I learned that two neutron stars may collide to form a kilonova, which produces gravitational waves like the ones detected in 2017, the first observed beyond the collision of black holes. Such kilonova release many heavy elements into the universe and are probably the origin of such for all creation, but no neutronium. The matter that constructs a neutron star could be referred to as neutronium. I mean, it's not, but it's the closest thing that fits the description, and it is certainly as durable. The pressure of the neutron star is enough to compact the neutrons into a much closer density that forms this matter, but this state is only possible under the extreme pressures caused by gravity. The minute it would be removed from its pressure cooker, it would cool and expand back into a state that suited the new pressure, ceasing to be this mythical neutronium. And, as I mentioned earlier, 1 cubic centimetre of a neutron star matter is commonly compared to weigh more than Mount Everest. What allows it to retain its extraordinary durability is the mass under such pressure, so let's assume the matter did not fly apart back to a stable state and somehow it retained its form as a workable, dense material. Having even 1 teaspoon's worth of it as an alloy applied to coat something would render it impractically heavy. And building a 10-kilometre long planet killer out of it, well, I guess it certainly would live up to its name. It would probably also collapse in on itself, becoming a sphere, and maybe referred to as, a neutron star. The only thing I can think of that makes sense is that neutronium, in Star Trek, is not the literal nuclear matter of a neutron star, somehow retaining its impossible structure beyond the confines of its stellar jail. But perhaps the matter is harvested somehow, allowed to retain a stable state, but retain some forever altered property, making it only a fraction as dense and heavy as it would otherwise be. This process of stabilising it could be the missing link in Star Trek's technobabble that eludes Starfleet, but that other cultures in the ancient past seem to have achieved somewhat. It would also explain why it could not be recreated, as the extremes of a giant star are required to forge it, let alone whatever sci-fi process harvests and refines it. Gathering some of the natural material in very small quantities is about all that can be managed by even a power such as the Dominion, and the United Federation of Planets only started getting the hang of even this by the 32nd century. Perhaps there existed civilizations in the ancient past, like the Tacon Empire, who would play with stars as their Lego bricks, moving them around, collapsing them at will to create neutron stars, so that they could then use some unknown technology to harvest the nuclear matter, somehow retaining that state and translating it into the not quite as world-shatteringly dense matter that was then alloyed or used to coat things as neutronium. Frankly, it's a suitably sci-fi challenge for something like Star Trek to tackle, and the workings of such a material into construction must be as magic to the denizens of the Federation as transporters and warp drive are to us. Thanks for watching this breakdown of what neutronium is, or at least what it probably is. Thanks again. I've been Rick, and until the next one, goodbye.